Real. Righteous, Ratchet, Real.
Righteous, Ratchet, and Real. Righteous, Ratchet, and Real.
I feel exposed. Okay. Welcome to the Righteous, Ratchet, and Real Podcast. This podcast is for people who love God, but sometimes side-eye the church.
We're three friends balancing the secular and sacred, the righteous and ratchet, as we discuss current topics through a gospel lens.
We might say some things we're not supposed to.
But you are probably thinking it anyway.
You know how we say in the church.
Charge it to our head
and not our heart.
We're going to keep it real.
What up, good people? Good evening. We greet you tonight, and we are inviting you into this righteous, ratchet, and real space. I know we got NBA finals. I know the NFL draft is on. We got Taylor Swift in Atlanta tonight, the Boston Celtics and Atlanta Hawks tonight in Atlanta. So I know we are busy. I know it's a lot going on, but we wanted to invite you into this live space because we know that we have some things to talk about. And so I know as soon as we wrap up here, I'll be watching the game with the hubs, and we're going to be doing all of our sports stuff. But, we've been talking about finances this month and the need to get our finances in order. And so we want to continue that discussion tonight. But before I go further, let me give my co-host, Takesha, a chance to say hello.
Hey, everybody. And this is also just the time for you to share the video, tag a friend, tell them to come on in, join us, remind them that we are going live and that we are having a discussion right now. Look, I done already taken the time. That's why I was looking at the screen, because I was like, let me share real quick and make sure that everybody knows that we are going in right now. And so we are excited that you're here with us.
Absolutely. Please share, tag somebody, because this is good information for everyone. Amen. Somebody pass the plate and all of that. But we are excited to be with you all tonight. Like I said, we've been talking about finances, and at the beginning of the series, I mentioned how all the financial lingo and stuff, it makes my brain hurt. It gets on my nerves. I mean that. I'm for real about it. It is not my strong suit, and I'm okay letting you know that. However, I have not let that stop me from learning the things that I need to learn or to do to help get my finances in order. I just used the phrase, somebody asked, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And so I just take it in chunks and I try to chew on that thing for as long as I can to get the information that I need. But, just because we have a strong dislike for something, and it's going to help somebody, just because we don't like to do something doesn't mean that we shouldn't or that we don't need to do it. And so, yes, I don't like it, but it is necessary because there's a certain way I'm trying to live when I get older, and I'm not trying to depend, and nothing against those who do depend on Medicare, Medicaid, none of that. But I don't want to depend on someone else or something else to take care of me when I retire and all that other stuff. So I'm trying to get stuff in order now. So just because I don't like it, it doesn't mean that I don't need to do it. Amen. Again, somebody. I'm my own amen in the corner tonight. All right. But we need to do whatever it takes to set ourselves up and our family up for the kind of life that we want to have. My cousin has a phrase. She says she works hard now so she can play later.
Amen.
Okay? So, sometimes we have to change our mindset so that we can do the things that we need to do. So it's imperative. It really is. It is imperative that we begin to take those steps, no matter how small or big. You may be in a space where it don't hurt your brain and you can do all the things. If that's the case, help somebody else, teach somebody else so that they can do what they need to do. All right. So let's go ahead and jump in. Did you know, good people, did you know that it's been said that there are two main things that can ruin a marriage? And those two things, it's not a long list, it's really just two. And those are sex and finances. Sex and finances. Now, we talked about the sex part. You need to go back and catch, I think that was in March, if I'm not mistaken. February. Go back and listen to the February episode, somebody. We talked about the sex part. But what about finances? What about our finances in marriage? Keisha, what do you think? Why do you think that finances are such a sore spot for marriage, for some marriages? And also, what's the best advice that you've heard, if any, for couples in managing their money?
So I think that finances, ultimately, you're talking about security. And so if someone, takes away part of your security, or, you're like, I'm the saver and you're spending all the money, it just becomes something that is a clash. And so, I can just think about when I look at some of my friends, I'm like, oh, your spending habits are not like mine. Like, they know everybody calls me the cheap friend. And so I'm
You're not
okay
cheap,
with
you're frugal.
Thank you. That's what I say. I am money wise. But
That's it. That's it.
but when you think about that as just in my friendships, I get to choose. Like, I'm like, I can say no, turn down. No, I don't do $50 brunches. That's ridiculous. I can choose that.
Right.
But if I am married to someone and our finances are commingled, or even just, I know that we're trying to work towards the end of life and you out here spending $50, I'm gonna be mad because you messing with my money. And it's different, like I can manage my finances on my own, but when we're talking about bringing them together, it's just one of those things that, I need you to think like me, and I'm sure they want me to think like them, and it just becomes a bit of frustration. I want to say that I guess the best advice I've heard is that you have to do what works for you and your household.
Yeah.
Because people often give you advice based on their household and what makes sense for them and what they've decided on. And sometimes you can look at it and say, oh, that's wonderful. I want to do that. But then you realize that you and your partner, that doesn't work.
Right.
You guys are on different wavelengths. So I think that that's probably the best advice I've heard, is to do it based on your household. And I think the other thing I would say is that it's definitely a conversation that you guys should have before getting married. You shouldn't wait till you get married. And so oftentimes we're so in love and starry-eyed with all the romance and the dreams, that we forget to talk about those aspects up front. Like, what is their saving style? What is their spending style? And I think those are all conversations that are very important to have up front.
Absolutely. That is so good. And I agree with all of that. Especially the one about finding out what works best for you and your household. And I would say that the best advice I've heard was along those lines too. I haven't really heard necessarily advice per se, but I know just in hindsight and from my own experience, you have to do what works for you. And so that conversation that you mentioned, definitely better to have before you say I do. Get that understanding, talk about it, and be honest about it, so that after you say I do, you're not somewhere trying to say I don't.
Right.
It'll mess up. It'll mess you up. So definitely agreeing for what works best for you and your household. And I'll say this too. This is just a little caveat for somebody. Something else I've learned in hindsight. whatever money you have, checkings account, savings account, make sure that the other person's name is on the account or accounts. Because if you die or get sick and your spouse's name is not on your account, they will not be able to access that money. And so part of getting your financial house in order is making sure you have your beneficiaries on your account. Because if they're not there, the bank will more than likely keep your money. And I'm not trying to give no bank, no institution, no more money than what I don't even like paying monthly fees. I make sure I have my balance intact because I'm not giving you damn inch of my money and some fees. So that irks me. But anyway, make sure you have your beneficiaries listed on your account. And if you have not done that, please do that sooner than later. Amen.
That is a great point. And I didn't even know that that was the case. I've done it with my mom and, making sure, but now I need to do it in the reverse too, because I know that I have them listed as beneficiaries on my 401k and stuff, but I was like, I didn't think about the bank. So, until I officially say I do.
That's right.
My mama and my sister are my beneficiaries.
Yes, absolutely. I feel you on that. Yeah, there'll be no commingling prior to the I do's. No commingling of the funds.
Right.
But so let's talk about the righteous aspect. Let's talk a little bit about the righteous aspect. We know that Genesis 2:24 tells us that, and I quote, "For this reason, a man shall leave his father and his mother and be joined to his wife, and they shall become one flesh." And so that we know that is the scripture. But there are some in the church who use that as grounds for saying that our finances should also be together in order to have a successful marriage. Keisha, you want to pick that up? What do you say? What say you?
It's, for me, I think it's a very interesting topic because obviously people can cherry pick how they want to cherry pick, subjects. But I think people are well-meaning. I want to believe they're well-meaning in saying that because I think they want everybody to be upfront with each other and to say, hey, this is what we're working with. This is our pot. But it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, this whole idea of do what works for you in your household, because everybody's household, the commingling of funds is not necessarily going to work. It can be more stressful. It can be more stress inducing and anger causing. I have a friend. I'll believe it as I have a friend. And so I honestly, when I looked at their relationship, I was like, oh, this is so beautiful. They sit down and they, talk about their finances and duke it out and, come to some sort of agreement on what their credit card is going to be used for and this and that. And it just seemed wonderful. But then she was telling me like every Thursday when they do this, it is stress inducing in their relationship because they literally are arguing with each other about the finances. And I said, look here, there's a lot of stuff that me and the dude be arguing over. I don't know if this needs to be one of our arguments that we have too, is us sitting down every week and looking at our finances because we are different. There are some ways that we are similar in the way we approach our financial things, but there are some ways that we are different. And so we agreed that, when we get married, we were going to keep them separate. And a lot of it came because I was like, yo, I need a prenup. I don't care if I have anything, that's major now. I need a prenup. He was like, you know what? If that's what you want, let's keep our finances separate.
Okay.
And I was like, you know what? I'm okay with that. So there will be a joint account. How we landed on it was there will be a joint account for our bills that we both contribute to when we know what our budget is for our bills. That separate funding is going to be for us to figure out what we do with. And so the other person don't have to answer to the other person. And that was freeing, but I had to free myself from that, thought
Yeah.
pattern, because somebody created what seemed so ideal to me that I wanted to go for it. And then now I'm just like, no, we're good on that. We're not gonna duke it out every week.
Right. No, we don't want to be doing that. We ain't having Fight Club every week.
Right.
There'll be none of that.
No, because that goes back to why we can understand that finances can be so stressful
Yeah.
and can cause marriages to be disrupted, because can you imagine like the level of resentment that can build up if you're not the type of couple to let stuff go after
Right.
you
Yep.
walk away from it. Some people can do that. Some people can just be like, all right, cool, we're good, we walk away from it. But that just seems like, for the wrong couple, it can build resentment towards the other person. If you're always being the one to have to say no, or the person who hears no, it can build a level of resentment in you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely of the having one shared, and then, where we can take care of the bills for the house and, kids or whatever. But I also believe in separating some stuff. So that, and I think I saw that kind of with my mom and dad. It worked for them. That's the model that has worked for my husband and I. And so yeah, we have a common pot, but we also have our own. And I'm not trying to find out what's in his, he's not trying to find out what's in mine. And we good. It works. It works for us. Like I said at the beginning, you got to find what works for you. That might not work in everybody's house, but that works for us. And as long as, and we've agreed to what goes in the common pot, and we're both happy with it. So yeah, you have to find out what works for you.
Right. So then the other part is like, you don't have to end up policing the other person, because that's what I feel happens is that you are policing the other person, like, down to the dime, depending on what your style is. You're like, you over here just, throwing away dollars.
Right. And you're not trying to hide anything. That's the other thing. I think part of that financial breakdown, if you will, is people try to hide stuff. And we hear the jokes and are even part of the jokes about having to hide bags in the truck of the car until it's safe to bring them in. We know that.
Amazon purchases.
Right, exactly. I know that life well. But I brought in a bag today from an annual conference I had to go to. But yeah, so but when you have your own, it doesn't matter. As long as I'm not taking that from the common pot, it's good. I'm not trying to hide. I'm not trying to cover nothing up. And so just think about the amount of tension that releases.
Right.
It takes a lot of effort. And not that I'm speaking from experience. I might be getting ready to tell myself, but it takes some effort to hide stuff. That's stressful.
Right.
That's very stressful.
I want to come in and show it off and be like, look.
Right. And that's what I was able to do today. I said, look, baby, look what I got. So, and it was out, and he was like, oh, that's pretty. So there you go. And we all good.
And the funny thing about it is, honestly, I am usually not the one that's hiding. He's usually the person who says, babe, you deserve it. Go ahead, get it for yourself.
Good.
And he'll actually oftentimes, because I won't get it for myself, he'd be like, girl, just tell me what it is and get it for me, So I shouldn't purchase because of a price tag. He's usually the person to get it for me.
That's good. That's good.
So as a married woman, have you guys had those tensions at any point in time, or challenging times over finances? How did you get over that? Like,
you know what, Kate? We really have not. We have been blessed. But I think it's because we kind of started out that way. And I'll tell you this, my word, okay, thank you, Lord. My word of advice from my mom going into the marriage was don't be making a whole lot of bills.
Mm-hmm.
And she modeled that whatever bills she made, she could pay for.
Mm-hmm.
And so she instilled that in me. She was one who could save, did save. And I just take a lot of my financial practices from my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I know how to save. I save well. I know how to spend too, but I pay for what I spend for. And
Mm-hmm.
so, I'm not creating a whole lot of bills and adding pressure to the house in that respect. And that's something to consider too for those of you who are seeking to be married or aren't, even if you are, yeah, that you're not, and that goes not just for the woman, that's for the man too. The man shouldn't be creating a whole lot of bills either and adding pressure to the house. There should not be any bills created that you cannot pay for.
Amen.
And so we know that when we do that, when we overspend, something else suffers. And so you're creating a lot of tension in your house and you're robbing your own house of its peace when you do those things. And
Yeah.
so luckily that has not been an issue for us. Not to say that money hasn't been tight, but it hasn't been tight because we were overspending.
Yeah. That right there even reminds me of something that I live by and just, say for myself, the beginning part of your marriage, like going through this whole expensive, elaborate wedding for a day. Like
Mm.
we definitely talked about that at the beginning. We're like,
Mhm.
I don't want to throw a party for everybody else to
Mm.
then start my marriage poor
Right.
because
Yeah.
everybody else had fun for a day.
Mhm.
So that I think is just even a line of thought that goes on to what your mom said and what so many people, they talk about that when it comes to even just finances is that so many begin their marriage in
Yeah.
debt
Right.
because of a wedding,
Yeah.
and there was a show that I still need to finish watching it on Netflix, but it was like Marriage or House, I think it's called.
Mm. Mhm.
And it amazes me
Oh
that
wow.
people think, let me put my savings into a wedding
Mm.
as opposed to a house. And for us, like we were like talking about this, he was like, is this a conversation? I was like, clearly for some couples it is. Like
Mhm.
they want the party, they want the wedding, they'd rather go to an apartment. And honestly, I was like,
Mm.
a little bit of judginess, but not a whole lot because everybody got to do what works for them.
Right.
But for me, I was like, it just always felt like it shouldn't have even been a choice. If we don't have it to do
Right.
both, then we're gonna do the house
Right. Absolutely.
before the
Absolutely.
marriage. So I want to talk about this whole idea of hiding things that you
Mm.
mentioned earlier,
Mhm.
because right now there is a huge case playing
Mm.
out with the soccer player who hid assets from his wife
Oh wow.
and he put them in his mother's name. So
Mm.
now she's getting divorced and she
Okay.
finds out there's not very much there for her to pull from because
Mm.
he intentionally hid his stuff
Okay.
beforehand. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think just creating problems. That's create and I'm sure and I haven't heard the story, but I'm sure somewhere in this man's mind he's like, this is money I made.
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing the story, but I can imagine that that's what he's saying and hiding it because he felt in some way that she wasn't entitled to it. Um yeah, that's something you have to decide too. I mean, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So
That
there
that brings back the idea of the prenup though. I wonder if they had one.
exactly. And so I heard a lawyer speak on this, and so
Mhm.
her advice was even if you do not have a lot, this is why you get a prenup because it
Mm.
forces the person to disclose all of their assets. So
Mm-hmm.
there is no funny business and shenanigans of hiding things, because everybody has to say this is what we're responsible for. And just
Right.
talking about the unfairness, and this is why I think most of us learn from our mothers to always have something on the side. So even if there was, like
Yeah.
joint finances, always have something on the side, was because of this very reason that,
Mm-hmm.
when it comes time, when you're in love, everything is wonderful and you're enjoying things. But when they go south, where's
Right.
your stuff? What are you walking away from the marriage from? And some
Right.
people,
Right.
will say that she doesn't deserve it because he made the money. But the problem is that oftentimes she's also providing a service and a lifestyle for him
That's true.
by not going to work,
That's true.
probably, being home, cooking meals, or whatever it
Right.
is that they have in
Yep.
agreement. So when she's been out of the workforce and out of her earning potential, and she's been, left behind, then what? So, there
You're
were
right.
movies on this whole thing,
Oh
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Women have to go
Yeah.
become waitresses because they've been home taking care of kids, and husbands were
Mm.
making the money. So it is definitely very important that you protect your interests on both
Yeah.
sides of the party, because
Yep.
now there are men who are staying home. So let's, be honest, protect yourself,
Yep.
protect your finances.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's rough out here in these financial streets. It is. Folk hiding and some everything and covering up and offshore account. Now I ain't at no offshore account level by any. No, I don't even know how I would do that, but I know
Right.
there are some folk who do.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's kind of ratchet to bring that up.
Right.
That's very ratchet. But
Yeah.
now, so Keisha, I'm gonna ask you this. You were saying the other day that there's a new hack for coming up, or that for sisters, maybe even some brothers to come up, or to secure that bag, or to make sure you are setting yourself up for retirement. Tell us about this new hack, Keisha.
So the people, and it may be an old hack, but people just speaking about it a little differently, because there was always sugar daddies out
Oh
here.
yeah, ooh, sugar
They
daddy.
they always was a sugar daddy now. And even Beyonce said she was a sugar mama. But
All right.
so I was watching a podcast, a clip, and it was interesting because the guy who was hosting the podcast asked a bunch of women, do you date outside your race? And
Mm,
so they began to say around the table, yeah, of course
mm-hmm,
we do. We don't date black men. We
mm,
actually date white men, older white men. And
mm,
so everybody was like, okay, speak on it. And so the girl is like, um they're more aware of themselves. They're able to have better discussions. And so she's listing off all these things that she's saying that her relationships have proved in these other relationships, that compared to her dating black men.
mm-hmm.
And so the guy says to her, okay, so basically what you're saying is they got money, so that's why you want to be with them. And she gets offended. She's like,
Mm.
what? And so then he's like, she's defending herself. And so he says, okay, the question is, would you date them
Mm-hmm.
if they didn't have money? And then everybody around the room, all the women are like, no. So,
Mm-hmm.
the idea is basically they're with these men who actually provide financial stability for them and can
Mm.
buy them gifts and can set them up. And so, if we listen to City Girls, or
Mm-hmm.
Saucy Santana, we
Uh-huh.
know that is the thing, right? Like, why are you dating a broke dude? There is
Mm-hmm.
no, concept of let's struggle up together. It's no, you better find somebody who's already secured their bag, even if they're old. So I watch TikToks and I watch Instagram videos, and there are all these young black girls
Mm.
who are taking videos with these old white men
Oh,
who are,
wow.
taking them on yachts
Okay.
and,
Okay.
everything. And so that is part of the new financial hack to get your security up by dating older and
Mm,
dating wealthier.
my,
Now,
my.
could you imagine yourself? But you know what? I think back to advice. When we talk about advice, right?
Ah,
My mom has definitely said before, that
okay.
you should don't marry for love because love comes. And, whether we take advice or not, is a whole different thing. But I feel that there are many older women who have given that advice, that love is fleeting, but that financial bag is security that will take you far. Do you think at this stage of your life, you could see yourself advising, understanding that whole? Now, I know you married for love and it worked out, but can you see that line of thought?
I mean, okay. I definitely see the line of thought. I do. Could I do it? I don't think I could. I
Mhm,
really, I don't think I could. That's just not, for lack of a better phrase, that's just not how I was raised. I don't see me doing it. But I understand the folk who do, and
mhm,
I don't judge them because at the end of the day, you gotta do what you gotta do and you gotta live with it. And
mhm,
so more power to you. If that's the arrangement that they have and all parties are in agreement, have at it.
mhm,
That's not for me though.
mhm.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think back to it. It also kind of speaks to what happened or what happens in terms of arranged marriages.
Mm-hmm.
There's financial security
Oh
in
yeah.
arranged marriages. There's definitely that aspect that comes with it. There is the familial values and the checking of the person to make sure they are,
Mhm,
raised in the right
mhm.
family and who they are. But, it kind of goes back to that whole arranged marriages and versus
Yeah,
love marriages. And
yeah.
so we've definitely grown up in a culture of love marriages,
Mhm.
but arranged marriages were definitely practiced in
Yeah.
societies for years and still practiced.
Right,
And
I was about to
so
say still are.
yeah. And I mean, I know both sides of the story. I know not love, I do know love stories, but I mean, I do know arranged marriages who, it worked out
Mhm.
and they did come to love each other, but then
Right.
I do know people who love was never part of the table. It was just always a contractual agreement that
Mhm.
families made. And so for me, I definitely understand securing the bag, but I think my mother, as much as she may have said marry for love, my mother always instilled in me, you get yours.
Okay.
And so my thought is always like, I'm going to pick well,
Mhm.
but I'm always looking to myself to be the provider for me. I'm not looking as I'm about to scam you or I'm going to marry or date
Right.
somebody because of your finances, because there's a whole lot of other things and levels of you feel like you can lord stuff over me that I'm not going to go for
Mm.
anyway. And
Mhm.
anybody who
Mhm.
knows me, I'm not a very quiet person. I speak my mind. I say what I think, and I don't think that contractual agreement will work out for me.
And but you know what the other part of that is too though, and I'm clear in thinking that that's something I wouldn't do. However, you never know what you will do until you are put in that into a certain situation. So whereas I'm thinking, that ain't for me, you know, you just never know. You never know um what life will have you doing. Let me put it that way. You never know until that button is pushed. And so, for the people, male and female, who are in those situationships, those entanglements, we don't know what their story is. We don't know what put them in that position. And so, yeah, I would like to think I would probably wouldn't do that, but truth be told, you just never know until you in that situation.
That is such facts right there. And I had not thought about that, but I'm serious. When you come from nothing,
Yeah.
you will
Or
employ
have nothing. Right.
whatever it takes to not go back, And so I hear you. If
Yep.
that look, if finessing an old dude into giving me part of his trust fund is what it is.
Ooh. Hey, I'm telling, but yeah, and even I don't know. I don't think but you just don't know how life is gonna life.
It's true.
Huh.
It's true.
So I was reading the other day, and this is shifting gears a little bit, but I was reading the other day an article out of NPR, and it highlighted this individual. She's known as the financial hype lady. She's actually from the Bay Area where Renee is. Shout out to Renee. But in the article, she was saying that we're working against the system that wants to keep us small. This same system wants to keep us broke, and it wants to keep us easy to control. Us being those minorities, us being those who are already pushed against the margin. She said that much of our financial woes is due in part to a system that is systematically discriminatory and forces that have been at work since before we were born. And these are forces that are designed to keep poor folk poor and marginalized. Do you think that's the nuts and bolts, Keisha, of the issue, or is there more to it? Is it just this discriminatory system that is trying to keep the 1% the 1%? What do you think? What do you think?
I think that without a doubt. I mean, I've been looking and kind of talking about, I've been reading articles for years about how America is moving to a place where it will become a two-class, country where there's the rich and the poor. And what we've been seeing and witnessing within the last couple of years, I think points clearly to that.
Yeah.
The taking away of Social Security, the taking away of pension plans, those things that allowed the middle class to kind of survive and to be there, and then when we look at inflation, I was like, we
Yeah.
were just talking about this, like, how do you actually put it to where you're like, things are increasing by dollars within weeks. And this
Yeah.
is food. This is like sustenance right here.
Right.
This
Yep.
is not, luxury items. This is not, things that you're just discretionary things. This is basic survival things.
Right.
When they're increasing the way that they are, then that means what I used to be able to put towards savings is now going towards my current just living. And then when we talk about childcare and we talk
Jesus.
about, the cost of childcare,
Right.
and the fact that you can't even get your kids into pre-K, into public schools until they're 5, 4, if you have a state that's great.
Right.
You're talking about when working class families and poor families were moving into the middle class. We're not even talking about moving towards the wealthy class. When you take away, as someone said in the comments, their very safety net.
Right. Yes.
That means that you're ensuring that the rich stay rich because they're okay. They're not the ones having the problem. And I mean, we can talk about tax structures and all that stuff, and trickle down economics and how they don't work. I don't want to get too much into it, but it is designed to ensure that those who are the working class keep on working because our work is what allows the 1% to survive. They're the employers.
Right.
And so they're doing everything that's possible to ensure that there actually is no security there for us. And
Mhm.
I think, and it becomes overwhelming.
Mhm.
And when we talk about this in relation to families, can you imagine the disruption that you put into families when they're fighting
Mm.
about how we survive, how
Right.
we
Yeah.
make it? You know, it's not even talking about the luxuries of life, but just
Right.
like the how we make it.
Right. And because one of the reports that came out of COVID, and of course it was happening long before COVID, but one of the reports that came out was people having to make a decision between buying their insulin versus paying rent, or buying where they're going to buy food that week or that month versus paying for something else. And so, when you start to have to make choices, uh based, am I going to get the medicine that I need to survive, or am I going to uh risk being homeless? Those aren't choices. Those aren't choices.
They aren't. They should not be.
That's a terroristic threat, to be honest, because I either have to choose between staying alive or some other quality of life item. And when you are forcing people into those types of decisions, that is terrorism in my book.
It is. It is. I had never thought about it as terror, but it is. It's absolutely is. And we can think about that. My former life, I looked at um health insurance
Mm,
costs and what people had to do. And I would like to say that I've only seen it once, but it's not true.
mhm.
Where people decided to stop fighting, to give up on their cancer treatments because it
Yep.
was bankrupting their
Mhm.
families
Yes.
and they did not want to do that to their loved ones.
Yeah.
And that is, to me, unthinkable
Mhm.
that a society would be created in which our healthcare costs would be so astronomical
Yes.
that people have to literally say, I'm going to give up on my life
Mm. Yeah.
for my family to be okay because I
Yep.
don't want to take from their household. So yes, it absolutely is designed,
Mhm.
and it's also why it is hard. I've watched some things on millennial savings and millennials just really fighting back against some of the narratives that boomers have put out about, like the lazy generation
Mm.
and why they're not financially as secure as other previous generations. And like they want to point towards like lattes, like you guys get Starbucks lattes that are $6. And so
Mhm.
therefore that's why you're broke and you don't have anything. But
Mhm.
the reality is that inflation has caused such a huge,
Right.
differentiation between previous generations and the current generation
Mm.
that it has been impossible for people to secure homes
Right.
because
Yeah.
and do some of the things that have brought security to previous generations. It's
Mhm.
honestly very saddening to
Yeah.
to see the way that we still have to have this conversation about the 1% versus the 99%.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. It's heavy. It's a lot. But it also points even more to why we have to educate ourselves. And no matter how much it might give us a headache to do so, or you may feel that you don't have time, it's one more thing. It's that one more thing that's necessary. It's that one more thing that could make a true difference in the legacy that you're able to leave your children, and for the life that you want to live in retirement, even. It is that one thing that is absolutely necessary that we begin to do, not only as African Americans, or minorities, but just as a whole. Yeah, absolutely. Can't look,
Can't believe, look, right.
everything is expensive now.
Look, cup of noodles is
Come
expensive.
on,
The
come
cheap
on.
food that you used to get to survive in
Yes,
college is expensive now. You're like, what?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. So, I mean, family, like I said, it is real out here in these financial streets. We have to do whatever we can to educate ourselves, whether that's looking at podcasts, whether that's looking at YouTube channels. You know, there's that series for dummies. You can do finances for dummies. You can do stock market for all of those. That whole book series. Of course, take advantage of your financial advisors and planners within your own bank. We did an episode about that and talked about that. There is so much information at our fingertips right now that will help us to be financially strong and to get our financial houses in order. So, yes, it may be a pain, but take the pain now so that you can enjoy life later and be financially fit and free. Keisha, you have anything else you want to add?
I have to say that we also have to think about even expatting, honestly.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And it's just something that's kind of in the back of my mind. There are, tons of Black people who are leaving America in droves,
Yeah. Yes.
um, because of one, just the treatment
Mm-hmm.
and the level of racism that is rising around the world,
Yeah.
honestly,
Yeah.
is one factor. But the other factor is in terms of where your money will stretch.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I think we do have to consider saving up our coins and considering where we can retire to,
Yeah.
because retirement is real.
Yes.
Like, I knew that retirement was a thing, but when you're young, you do not think about it.
Right. Right.
You get to the middle, you start to think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I
I'm
know I
there.
still got some years on it before I could actually retire, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to at least, begin to think about it. And
Yeah.
watching my mom and my grandmom having retired and watching the system, and they got
Mm-hmm.
Social Security. And I knew when I came into, they were like, yeah, you're paying for Social Security, but you're not going to have Social Security when you age. I
Mm-hmm.
already knew by the time I retired that was not going to be possible for me.
Right.
And looking at them with, you know, Social Security in place, and still
Mm-hmm.
looking at how many things, it's just very scary. And so
Right.
I think that that is something that we do have to consider as well, is that we might have a lot more expats. Take your money that you are saving and
Mm.
go to places where you can actually live a life,
Right. Yes.
that will give you security, but also give you just even the ability to breathe.
Right. Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, family, we hope and we pray that something has been said to encourage you to do what you need to do now. Do it now. Don't wait. Do it now to get your financial houses in order. And like I said at the beginning of the broadcast, yes, I know it may feel like an elephant that's sitting on your chest and you need to get rid of it. The way we get rid of it is to just take one bite of that elephant at a time and just start chewing, start biting, start chewing. And the more you do that, the easier it becomes, the more you'll know, and the more you can grow and stabilize your house. We thank you. We thank you for joining us for this live broadcast of the Righteous, Ratchet, and Real podcast. We love you guys. Keep on listening. Keep on tagging folk. Keep on subscribing to this podcast. We love you. We appreciate you. And we'll catch you next time. Join us next week as we start a new series next Tuesday. Join us next week. I'm not going to tell you what it is because you need to hear it. You need to go in there and get it and know it for yourself.
Yes. And just so that I was like, I know we didn't wrap up, but I just want to say, because this episode was on your spouses, partners, and your finances, don't just educate yourself. Make sure, look, Tara saw some, wait, is it over? Oh no. Look, you can't go back and rewatch it, but make sure that you're not just educating yourself. This is a conversation that you both need to be aware of. This is, when you learn with your partner. Make sure that you guys are learning all the hacks, all the financial lingo, all of that stuff together so that you are on one accord. Even if you have separate finances, you still need to be able to know the information on your own. Each one of you know it. And then, like if Greta is the person who doesn't, like to, hear the financial lingo, Brad could be the one, who don't mind it. And so, or can break it down in a way that, Greta can be like, I got it now. So both of you need to approach it together.
And that's exactly what happens. That's exactly what happens. We're sending each other articles, and I'd be like, I don't get that. And he explains it. So yeah, we definitely do that because I need to. I hear you, Terrence. I hear you. But yeah, so we appreciate you guys. Go and watch the Celtics destroy the Hawks. Yes, I live in Atlanta, but I'm still rooting for the Celtics because that's my baby's team. So let's go. We appreciate you guys.
All right. Bye.